Ethan Calloway barely glanced up from his tablet as his executive team droned through the latest reports. Numbers flashed across the screen: efficiency scores, quarterly projections, minor workforce adjustments. His company, Next Tech Logistics, was thriving, expanding faster than its competitors. Yet something gnawed at him lately. A feeling he couldn't quite name. The quarterly town hall was supposed to be a morale boost. A chance for employees to air concerns, ask questions, and feel heard. The format was carefully controlled, of course. Middle management filtered out frivolous complaints before they ever reached the executive level. But today, something unexpected happened. A woman stepped forward, hesitation flickering in her deep brown eyes. Ethan didn't recognize her. He rarely recognized anyone outside the corporate floor, but something about her presence caught his attention. She was young, early 20s, with tired eyes that held a quiet defiance. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady. "I wanted to ask if Nextech could offer discounted meal deliveries for employees who work double shifts." Silence stretched through the conference room. A dozen managers exchanged glances. The moderator, a polished HR executive, cleared her throat. "Ms. Martinez, that's not." "Why?" Ethan interrupted. The word left his mouth before he had fully thought it through. He set down his tablet, finally looking at her. The woman, Martinez, he reminded himself, seemed surprised that he had addressed her directly. She squared her shoulders. "A lot of us don't have time to cook after working 16-hour shifts. By the time we get home, we're exhausted. Fast food is expensive, and meal prep takes time we don't have. A simple discount on food deliveries could help." A few chuckles rippled through the room. Ethan frowned. "We already provide vending machines and a cafeteria." One of his executives interjected, dismissive. "Employees have options." Martinez didn't back down. "Not if they're already spending most of their paycheck on rent and childcare." A heavy pause followed. The tension in the room was palpable. Ethan studied her. She didn't look like someone asking for convenience. There was something else there, something deeper, unspoken. He turned to his COO, Patrick Reynolds. "Do we have any data on how many employees work double shifts regularly?" Patrick shifted uncomfortably. "Not offhand, but it's a small percentage. Those who do choose to." Martinez let out a breathless laugh, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You think people work double shifts for fun?" A few managers bristled at her tone, but Ethan found himself leaning forward. "How often do you pull doubles?" "Almost every day." Her answer settled over the room like a weight. Patrick waved a hand. "That's voluntary overtime." "It's survival," Martinez corrected. Her jaw tightened. "For some of us, it's the only option." Ethan glanced at the boardroom table, fingers tapping against the polished surface. Something about this didn't sit right with him. He'd built Nextech from the ground up, prided himself on its efficiency. But efficiency for whom? He turned back to Martinez. "I'll look into it." Her expression flickered, part skepticism, part hope. "Thank you, sir." Ethan nodded, signaling for the next question. But as the meeting moved on, he barely heard the rest. That night, he sat in his penthouse, a glass of bourbon untouched on the table beside him. The view of the city stretched out before him, a glittering display of success. His success. Yet, all he could think about was that woman, Martinez. The exhaustion in her voice. The quiet way she had asked for something so simple, as if she already expected to be ignored. He pulled up her employee file. Sophia Martinez. Warehouse worker. Age 23. Hired 2 years ago. ***, no infractions. No complaints. Nothing that should have made her stand out. And yet, she did. Ethan paged through internal reports. Productivity quotas had risen steadily over the last 3 years. Workplace injuries were up, albeit marginally. Retention rates were slipping in lower-tier positions. Nothing catastrophic, but the pattern was there. He rubbed a hand over his face. Had he let the machine run unchecked for too long? Patrick had assured him that employees chose these hours. But Sophia's words haunted him. It's survival. The next morning, he made his decision. "You're going undercover?" Patrick's incredulous tone was matched only by the confusion on the faces of the other executives gathered in Ethan's office. Ethan buttoned the last clasp on the faded work uniform he had retrieved from the warehouse stockpile. It was stiff, unfamiliar. "Good. Just for a few days," he said. "I want to see things for myself." "You could have a report compiled," another executive offered. "I don't need a report." Patrick pinched the bridge of his nose. "This is absurd, Ethan. You run a billion-dollar company. You don't need to play dress up." Ethan met his COO's gaze, unflinching. "I need to understand what's happening in my company. And if I have to do that from the ground level, then so be it." And with that, he walked out. The warehouse was nothing like the pristine corporate offices he was used to. The air smelled of cardboard and sweat, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Workers moved in a carefully choreographed dance, scanning, lifting, sorting. No wasted motions. Efficiency above all else. He introduced himself as Evan Carter, a new recruit. The shift supervisor barely glanced at him before tossing him a barcode scanner and directing him to a station. Within the first hour, Ethan felt the strain. The work wasn't just physically demanding, it was relentless. No room for rest. No slowing down. Every second was accounted for. It wasn't until lunch break that he saw Sophia again. She sat alone, eating mechanically, eyes half-lidded from exhaustion. But then, discreetly, she slipped something into her bag. A sandwich, ***. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Was she stealing? As his gaze lingered, something else caught his attention. The way she scanned a room first, ensuring no one was watching. The way her movements were practiced, careful. This wasn't for her. A realization settled in his chest, heavy and uncomfortable. He had to know more. That night, after the shift ended, he followed her. She walked quickly, shoulders hunched, gripping her bag tightly, as if it contained something precious. The streets were empty, the city's usual noise fading into the quiet hum of distant traffic. Ethan kept his distance, watching as she entered a run-down apartment building on the outskirts of town. Moments later, lights flickered on inside a small window. Shadows moved. Then laughter. High-pitched young. Children. Ethan inhaled sharply. She wasn't stealing. She was bringing food home. To them. A sick realization twisted in his stomach. This wasn't just about meal discounts or long hours. This was survival. And he had let it happen under his watch. The wind carried a biting chill as Ethan lingered near the apartment complex, his breath visible in the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. From his vantage point across the street, he could see the faint shadows of movement through the threadbare curtains of the second-floor window, where Sophia had entered moments ago. The laughter had stopped now, replaced by muffled voices, small, eager, and undeniably young. He exhaled, the weight of realization settling deeper in his chest. The stolen sandwich. The exhaustion in her voice. The quiet way she had accepted dismissal at the town hall. It was all starting to make sense. Sophia Martinez wasn't just working double shifts for herself. She was keeping someone else alive. Ethan clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had come here expecting to uncover inefficiencies, maybe some managerial negligence. Nothing could have prepared him for this. This wasn't just a case of a worker being undervalued. This was something much worse. A soft knock echoed from somewhere inside the apartment. He watched as the door opened slightly, revealing a woman, a neighbor, maybe, handing Sophia a small plastic bag. Sophia's expression was guarded, but she nodded in thanks, her shoulders sagging in relief. The door shut quietly, and the light inside shifted as she moved back toward the center of the room. Ethan forced himself to turn away. He had seen enough for tonight. The walk back to his car was heavy with thoughts he couldn't shake. How many others like her existed under his watch, slipping through the cracks of a system designed for efficiency, but blind to humanity. How had he let it come to this? The next morning, Ethan was back at the warehouse, blending in among the workers, his alias intact. Sophia arrived minutes before her shift, her face betraying the sleepless night she had endured. Yet as soon as she clocked in, she pushed forward without complaint, her movements precise and practiced. He found himself watching her closely, studying the rhythm of her work. Every motion, every step, fast, efficient, but never wasteful. Unlike some of the newer hires, she didn't struggle under the weight of the quotas. If anything, she surpassed them. And yet, she was still here. Why hadn't she moved up? Ethan spotted one of the supervisors, a stocky man with a permanent scowl, standing near the conveyor belts. He had seen him the day before, had even caught his name in passing. Darnell. The way he loomed over the workers, barking orders, left little room for interpretation. Ethan approached casually, pretending to adjust the barcode scanner strapped to his wrist. "Sophia's one of the best workers here," he said, keeping his tone neutral. Darnell barely glanced at him. "Yeah? So, just seems like someone with her speed should be moving up, maybe getting trained for a lead position." Darnell let out a short, humorless laugh. "She's a charity case. Barely keeps her head above water, but I'll give her this. She doesn't complain." He smirked, his gaze following Sophia across the floor. "Knows her place." Ethan felt his jaw tighten. "What do you mean by that?" Darnell turned to him fully then, sizing him up. "I mean, some people think working harder gets you somewhere, but that's not how this works. You don't get promoted just 'cause you put in the hours. You gotta play the game." Ethan didn't like the way he said it. Darnell shrugged, losing interest. "She's useful where she is. That's all that matters." Something burned in Ethan's chest, an unfamiliar fury that he barely contained as he stepped away. It was worse than he thought. By the time the shift ended, he had made up his mind. He wasn't just going to watch anymore. He was going to get answers. Sophia left as soon as the final bell rang, slipping through the doors and out into the evening air. Ethan followed again, keeping a careful distance. The streets were quieter tonight, the hum of the city softened by the late hour. She walked faster this time, her movements tense. Maybe she had noticed him, or maybe she was simply used to the feeling of being watched. By the time she reached her apartment, Ethan had already decided what he would do. As she reached for her keys, he stepped forward. "Sophia." She spun, eyes wide, the key slipping from her fingers. She caught it before it hit the ground, her breath coming fast. "What the hell?" "It's me." The moment the words left his mouth, he knew they weren't enough. Evan Carter was who she knew. Not Ethan Calloway. Not the man responsible for everything she had been through. Her eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" He hesitated. "To talk." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Right. Because guys like you suddenly care about workers like me." "I know you're taking care of someone," he said, ignoring the edge in her voice. "I know why you're pulling doubles." Her expression flickered, but she recovered quickly. "You don't know anything. I know you've been taking food home. I know you work yourself to exhaustion because you don't have a choice." She went silent. Ethan softened his tone. "Let me help." Sophia let out a slow breath, shaking her head. "No one helps people like me." "Then let me be the first." For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, finally, she turned and unlocked the door. "You have 5 minutes." Ethan followed her inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The apartment was small, too small for the weight it carried. A tiny kitchen, a couch that doubled as a bed, a small table littered with schoolbooks and crayons. And then he saw them. 2 kids, no older than 10, peeking from behind a bedroom door, their faces a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. Sophia followed his gaze. "My brother and sister," she said quietly. "Luca and Emma." Ethan exhaled. "You're raising them." She crossed her arms, the exhaustion finally breaking through her walls. "Our parents died 2 years ago. I'm all they have." The words hit like a punch to the gut. 2 years. She had been carrying this weight alone for 2 years. Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. "Sophia, But she wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at the badge clipped to his belt, the one he had forgotten to remove. Her entire body went rigid. "You're not Evan." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he saw only betrayal in hers. "No," he admitted. "I'm not." Her voice dropped to a whisper, shaking with anger. "Who the hell are you?" Ethan Callaway had faced boardrooms full of ruthless investors. He had built an empire from nothing, survived economic crashes, outmaneuvered competitors who would have bled him dry without hesitation. But nothing had ever felt as terrifying as this moment. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't the one in control. The silence between them was suffocating. Ethan could see the exact moment the walls around Sophia's trust hardened into steel. The exhaustion in her face was gone now, replaced by something cold and sharp. "You lied to me." He held up his hands, trying to keep his voice steady. "I didn't lie. I needed to see things for myself. You needed to spy on your own workers." Her voice was venomous, low enough that the children wouldn't hear. She took a step forward, her hands clenched into fists. "You watched me. You followed me. And what? You wanted to play savior." "It wasn't like that," he said, but even to his own ears it sounded weak. She let out a breathless laugh, shaking her head. "I should have known. I should have known the only time someone notices people like me is when it benefits them." Ethan took a step closer, but she held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "You don't get to do this," she hissed. "You don't get to walk into my life, into my home, and act like you care." His stomach twisted. He did care. More than he had expected, more than he understood. But how could he prove that to her, when every step he had taken until now felt like a betrayal? "I wanted to understand," he said, quieter this time. "And now I do." Her laugh was bitter. "Oh, you understand now? And what? You're going to fix it. Make it all better with a few corporate policies." She crossed her arms, her entire body trembling. "Do you have any idea what it's like? Do you know how many times I've had to choose between rent and food? How many nights I've come home so tired I can barely stand, but I keep going because Luca and Emma need me." Ethan swallowed hard. "I didn't know. But I should have." She scoffed. "Yeah, you should have." His jaw tightened. "I don't want this for you, Sophia." Her eyes flashed. "Then why did you build it?" The word struck him harder than he expected. He had no answer. Sophia shook her head. "You think you're the first rich man who's seen the truth? You think you're the first person who's realized that the system is built to keep people like me exactly where I am?" She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Nothing will change. Because men like you don't actually care." Ethan's chest ached, and for the first time in his life, he felt small. "That's not true." "Prove it." The challenge hung between them like a blade. A door creaked behind her, and Luca's small voice cut through the tension. "Sophia." She turned immediately, her anger slipping beneath the protective warmth of an older sister. "It's okay, baby. Go back to bed." Luca's tired eyes flicked to Ethan, suspicion clear in his young face. "Who is he?" Sophia hesitated. She looked at Ethan, something unreadable in her gaze, then turned back to her brother. "Just someone leaving." The words shouldn't have hurt, but they did. Ethan took a slow step back, nodding once. "I'm sorry," he said, and for the first time in years, he meant it. Sophia didn't respond. She simply shut the door in his face. Outside, the cold air hit him like a slap. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he walked away, her words echoing in his head. "Then why did you build it?" She was right. He had built this. And now, he had to decide if he was strong enough to tear it down. The boardroom was colder than usual, though Ethan suspected that had more to do with the people inside than the temperature itself. 12 men and women sat around the long, polished table, their gazes trained on him with expressions ranging from curiosity to impatience. These were the people who had helped him build the company from the ground up, the ones who had praised him for his ruthless efficiency, his ability to squeeze profits from every crevice of the operation. And now, they were the ones he had to convince to undo it all. Ethan placed both hands on the table, steadying himself. "We're restructuring." A ripple of murmurs swept through the board. One of the senior executives, Harold Lutz, leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Care to elaborate?" Ethan nodded. "Effective immediately, wages at our fulfillment centers will be increased by 20%. Someone scoffed. Another executive, Patricia Hensley, crossed her arms. "That's a drastic shift." "It's a necessary one," Ethan countered. Harold's lips twisted into a smirk. And what brought this on? A moral awakening. The condescension in his voice sent a surge of irritation through Ethan, but he kept his expression even. I spent the last week working in one of our warehouses, unnoticed, unrecognized, and what I saw was unacceptable. A silence settled over the room. Ethan continued, his voice unwavering. Our workers aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're people. People who are barely scraping by while this company turns record-breaking profits. He let that sink in before adding, we can afford to do better. So we will. Harold let out a dry laugh. And you expect the shareholders to just accept that? Ethan met his gaze. The shareholders will see that an investment in our workforce is an investment in the company itself. Higher wages mean lower turnover. It means better performance, higher morale, and long-term stability. He leaned forward. Or would you rather continue bleeding money training new hires who quit within months? Patricia tapped her nails against the table. And what else? Ethan didn't hesitate. Paid childcare assistance, subsidized transportation, meal vouchers, and a full audit of our management teams. That got their attention. Patricia's expression darkened. An audit. Ethan's jaw tightened. There are people in leadership positions who have been taking advantage of their authority. That ends today. Harold scoffed. So you're planning to gut the entire system? I'm planning to fix it, Ethan corrected. Silence stretched between them. Then, Patricia exhaled. You're serious. Deadly. Harold shook his head in disbelief. This company is your legacy, and you're willing to risk it on some misguided crusade. Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. I'm willing to risk everything to make sure that legacy is something worth being proud of. The changes weren't instant. They weren't easy, but they happened. Raises were rolled out. Policies were rewritten. Managers like Darnell were put under investigation, and those found guilty of mistreatment were removed. Workers who had once labored in silence found their voices, found dignity in a place that had stolen it from them for so long. And yet, the hardest battle still remained. It took Ethan 3 visits before Sophia even agreed to speak to him. She met him outside her apartment, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You don't give up, do you? No, he admitted. She studied him for a long moment. Why are you here? He exhaled. Because I owed you more than an apology. Sophia's gaze flickered, but she didn't speak. Ethan reached into his coat pocket, pulling out an envelope. Your promotion. If you still want it. She blinked. Promotion. Operations supervisor. Full salary. Benefits. He held it out to her. You deserve it. She didn't take it. Why? Ethan met her gaze. Because you earned it. And because you were right. Sophia's lips pressed together. Then, slowly, she took the envelope. She opened it, scanning the contents. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. It's a start. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. It's only the beginning. And for the first time, he truly meant it.